Welcome back to the Greenhorn Photo Taker for the final episode of a two-part series detailing a remarkable 7-day New England road trip. We joined the story having been filled with lobster roll and leaving the sounds of the crashing down east waves behind us. We headed west on Route 2 towards the western Maine mountains and eventually the White Mountains of New Hampshire and the Green Mountains of Vermont. And for me personally, these last 4 days were some of the best times I have ever had on a road trip. Maybe it was because the remnants of Hurricane Beryl turned our plans upside down at times, forcing a spontaneity that in hindsight was better than an itinerary, or maybe it's simply that the mountains are better than the sea, at least for me. Aside from the legs of the trip from and to New Jersey, the drive from Bar Harbor to Rangeley was our longest. At just over 160 miles with no planned stops along the way. We had our first taste of the remnants of the hurricane, but otherwise the drive was uneventful and increased in scenic beauty the closer we got to the western Maine mountains. Rangeley, a population of just under 1,000, was our first stop. There were very friendly shop owners here, happy to talk about how times have changed for the town, for both the good and ill. Most restaurants were only open in the latter part of each week, as tourism is slowing and they can't find enough people to fill positions. For our purposes, this was close to ideal. We hit a bit of accidental good fortune almost immediately and found an old, somewhat battered pamphlet that referenced something called Quill Hill. I had never heard of it, and it was not referenced in any of my pre-trip research, and it shows you what the internet knows. Quill Hill is the creation of one man, Adrian Bouchot, who simply built a public road to a one-of-a-kind 360-degree panorama of the western Maine mountains. Accessible by a wonderfully maintained dirt road, only a few minutes outside of town, we wound our way up the path until we reached the top and found a view that is amongst my favorite of all time. I, the Greenhorn Photo Taker, of course, left my camera in the motel in error. So this footage is all from my phone, but it still looks great. Truly breathtaking. And, as an added bonus, the route back down was even more scenic than the way up. Bouchot died in 2019, but he left behind something majestic for the rest of us to enjoy. After my first encounter with pork schnitzel, a huge success, we drove a large portion of the Rangeley Lake scenic byway. The central point of interest on this route was something called the Height of Land Overlook. My research had provided much hope for the scenic spot. Through hikers on the Appalachian Trail often called it the best view of the north, and scenic drivers had similar feelings. They were not wrong. Though our hopes for a sunset were spoiled by low cloud cover, this location was remarkable. I adore this minimalist footage. And it ended in an almost perfect day of road tripping. Agamemnon Park, Ocean Path, Jordan Pond, Park Loop Road, Quill Hill, Pork Schnitzel, and Height of Land, all in a single day. Oh, we're in New Hampshire. The following morning is where Beryl started to truly mess with us. The most important goal of the entire trip for us was Mount Washington. I had driven the auto road in 2016, but high winds and dense fog ruined my view at the top. Now, we had the remnants of a hurricane staring us down, threatening to repeat a bad weather experience. That morning, we made the tough call to go all in. We would skip Bennett Bridge, Screw Auger Falls, and Glen Ellis Falls for a push to hit the mountain by midday. And it was a close run thing. Bouts of rain crossed our route all morning, and by the time we got to the base of the toll road, a sign informed us of the worst news: only 100-foot visibility at the summit. Knowing any experience here is better than no experience here, we paid the absurd $65 toll fee and headed up. The drive, as expected, was tremendous. Watching the foliage change from a mix of hardwood and evergreen to all evergreen, and then finally emerging above the tree line never gets tiresome. And of course, the guardrail-less turns were always a treat. We explored the summit and took a few short walks on some of the trails. None of these videos or pictures do the summit of Mount Washington justice. Even on a 14mm wide-angle lens, the mountain looks almost normal. They're not. They're huge, and the expanse all around the summit is difficult to capture. Our way back down was just as fun as the ascent, and provided alternate vistas and different perspectives on some of the blind curves. If you are ever in the area, the toll road, while expensive, is easily worth it. Now came the challenge of an open afternoon. We were well too far south to head back north and hit some of the waterfalls, especially with the radar showing heavy rain near our skip destinations, so instead we decided to investigate a state park outside of North Conway. On our way, we just happened to notice a cool-looking ledge out the window, and moments later we noticed a sign that changed our afternoon for the better. Cathedral Ledge was an instant classic for us. The area was small for sure, but there were trails that led to many vantage points, the main one behind a fence, but others were more open and free. We both loved it here. Situated above Echo Lake State Park, the ledge offered fantastic views, and when combined with the dark incoming rain clouds, it also made an interesting moody scene that reminded us that an itinerary was just a guideline, and grasping the opportunity when presented can often pay off. But I feel a bug. Overnight, a deluge of rain impacted the areas to our north. Vermont paid a heavy toll, as we would soon see, but as terrible as Beryl was for so many, it caused another silver lining for us. Our morning objectives, normally overcrowded on good weather days in the spring through the autumn, were nearly empty for us. First up was the Kacamagus Highway, a truly elite scenic drive in the fall, we had to make do with the summer vantage point, which to be fair, was hardly a chore. The Swift River flows alongside for much of the Conway side, with several interesting stops along the way. It was so empty, I often left the GoPro on the side of the car window while we walked to the river. And at one point, a worried tourist found us to comment, "In Florida, we just don't leave GoPros on car windows." But that was how the morning went. A fun scenic drive with stops for the river or at several scenic outlooks. The last one, unnamed, being my personal favorite. Rain threatened often, it sprinkled once, but it really never impacted one of our destinations. The afternoon was even better, with a long stop at Flume Gorge. Initially off-put by having to pay $20 per person for just a few-mile hike, we soon realized what the fuss was about. The hike itself was fine, but the gorge was elite level scenery. Over the course of the past thousands or maybe even tens of thousands of years, Flume Brook had eroded its granite bed, at times carving walls almost 90 feet high. Thinking the best was behind us, we continued our hike until we came upon a seemingly innocuous sign called the Wolf's Den. From our vantage point, the trail looked something similar to the Bear Cave, which we encountered earlier. A fun stop, but nothing great. Little did we know in actuality, it was a small cave structure that someone my size could barely fit through. I think the footage and commentary will tell a better story than I do.
I saw the crawling on hands and knees.
Yeah,
I knew it wasn't doing that, so.
It goes deeper, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Not for me.
I'm good.
Exactly.
That's where my claustrophobia might kick in. I don't know.
You going?
I'll go a little.
They seemed like it was a little difficult, so I was like, you know what, my knees, like, I don't.
I am not a fan.
Rock and knees.
Nope. Do you want to go further, Em?
Right? Like, you never knew your claustrophobia until that moment. You're like, actually.
I'll go if you want to go.
You want me to hold your bag?
You don't want to do it?
Oh, I don't.
Well, I had to redeem myself from the trip with Uncle Joey.
Not far. I don't want to go far. But
No kudos to you.
I'm out.
Out.
The squeeze.
I don't know if I can do it.
Well, if you can't fit, I definitely can't
Right?
fit.
The opening's right there. I just don't know if I can physically make it.
All right, 1, 2, 3.
Like, having the strength to do that.
Wow. I don't know, Ems.
Did you get through?
He got through. I'm going for it. Ouch. I'm kind of bigger.
Yeah, go like this. You want me to hold your camera?
Sure.
No, on the other side, yeah. Perfect. Give me your hand.
Right there, watch out. No,
Hold on 1 second.
no, I'm not saying
There we go.
this whole.
Yeah, it's easy. You got.
Oh, yeah, I see.
Doesn't it? Babe. Get your backpack.
Just a second, I am up.
Success. Oh. Thank you. Nice work, Em.
It's easy, right?
It's something.
I thought I cracked my Apple Watch because I hit it on the thing and it's never.
Wow.
That was fun. And I got back view on video.
You did? Oh.
Feeling great, we headed northwest to Stowe, Vermont as our destination. I must say, this section of Route 93 through Franconia Notch was impressive, and I wish I had taken the time to mount the GoPro for it. The rest of the drive to Stowe was also interesting. Occasional downpours, lunchtime stories about flooded homes, and the further into Vermont we went, the more damage we saw. Because of this long drive, I actually had the GoPro on 10 times speed, so I apologize for the jerky nature of the footage as we approached Stowe itself. But streets were closed, roads were washed out, and we often saw evidence of previously overflowing rivers and sections of deep mud across the road. And to think, almost a year ago to the date, the same thing happened in the same area, but just worse. I love Stowe. I don't snow, I don't ski board, but this was my first trip here in the last few years. The beer, the food, Mount Mansfield, the scenery, it's all in my wheelhouse of fun. That night we enjoyed an incredible pizza dinner at Picasso, pun intended, and had ice cream. Later that evening from the room, we both watched President Biden give his UN press conference. It was kind of surreal, and his eventual exit seemed a foregone conclusion at the time. The next morning would once again prove to be adventurous. Paying yet another exorbitant toll to use a mountain road, we headed up to the Mount Mansfield Peak Visitor Center. This would be our launching off point for a hike to the summit itself. Mount Mansfield is my all-time favorite northeast hike. I absolutely love it up there, and have completed the Sunset Ridge Trail from the base to the summit. Today's version was indeed a little bit of a cheat, as we drove several thousand feet up the mountain before hoofing it to the summit itself. And as we ascended, our fears came true, and Beryl finally had a true impact. Thick fog had socked in the entire summit area, but determined to give it a shot, and perhaps get lucky with a break in the cloud deck, we set off for the summit anyway.
These rocks are going to be treacherous.
Still, it was impressive up there as we took our time through minor scrambles, crossed near fairly steep ledges, and through glades of lush green undergrowth. Here is some of my favorite footage with the music muted. Even in poor conditions, I love it up there. The summit view never did materialize, but here is what it looked like on previous stops there. We often slipped, but never wiped out on the way back down. And once in the car, the sun popped out rather quickly, but that's okay. The experience was one of a kind. I know this is a long video, but it felt right to keep the White and Green Mountains together in one installment. For us, it was several days of constant fun and often runs together in our minds. But it was also the end of the elite portion of the road trip. We had hoped to also see the Lake Champlain Scenic Byway, but decided that another 6 hours in the car, starting around 1 p.m., was simply not worth it. So we headed to our final night stay in Schenectady, New York. Our inn was set in a 200-year-old historic district and was a joy to explore. The inn itself was very old and didn't have the amenities of a typical hotel, like a front desk, but that was more than made up for by the innkeeper's hospitality. He even tracked us down after we checked out, only to hand us back a chapstick that we left behind. The next day we headed home, back to New Jersey. But eager to keep the feeling of the road trip intact, we walked Minnewaska State Park, taking in Awosting Falls and the ledge views of the lake. I have hiked here several times a year for the past decade, but never made it to the falls. They were nice, so was the ledge view, but they also signaled the end of the trip for us. Overall, this trip was special. It was a mere few weeks before my wife and I will become empty nesters with both kids off to college. And to get to spend 16 waking hours a day for 7 straight days with my youngest was a treasure. Thanks for watching. Get out and explore.